Hey, Natsu here. Today I'm going to start part 2 of what if Deku had Cell's powers. In the last part, I ended it after Aiza was tested. Um, so now where we are is the next day with All Might's hero versus villain. I'm going to switch one thing only, and it's where Bakugo is. So instead of being Izuku Ochako versus Ira Bakugo, it's Deku, Cell, versus Ira and Tokoyami. Just because I want to try and separate Deku and Bakugo as much as possible for a while in the What If. Um, just to try and make sure that Bakugo doesn't find out that Deku is... that Cell is Deku. Basically, he thought that, okay, yes, 6 years ago, the guy does make me remember the guy Deku that died kind of because of me a bit. But, yeah, they're totally different. So he doesn't really think of Cell as Deku. Actually, he didn't even think of the possibilities of Deku being, of Cell being Deku. So, from the start, Deku didn't want to basically say it to anyone. All Might is basically the only one that knows about it. Who was the one that I said had one for all? Wait. Oh, come on, I forgot again. Oh yeah, he gave it to Bakugo, in fact. I was thinking, but yeah, no, I forgot that. Since in the last What If, All Might's basically at his prime now, I kind of forgot. I was kind of stuck in that mentality. But yeah, so basically, um, instead of of Tokoyami, it was Bakugo in that fight. Basically, they had no real problem winning, since this Bakugo also trained, because, he saw, firstly he trained because he wanted to be stronger to protect people after basically thinking that it was his fault that Deku died after he insulted him. So this Bakugo is stronger, but also a lot more friendly. He's still not the best guy around, but he's still good. So, Deku... Wait. Yeah, so for the battle, Tokoyami decided to tell Ida that the best way they have against someone that can fly and basically do what he can do is to block the windows and to basically try and get as much shadow in the room, darkness, to basically try and let Dark Shadow do what it needs. So Ida is basically blocking the windows to try and make shadow. While that was happening, Deku was selling his plan to Ochako, which was just for him to actually fly up with Ochako in his arm, and to basically just kind of, you know, break the break the glass, enter, and make sure that they're able to grab the bomb before anything else happens. Ochako's ready for that plan, but she wants to ask him how he plans on at least getting in there without attracting their attention, and he just says, "Oh, we're not going to block to try and enter without getting the attention. You're going to be on my back while so that they don't see you. I'm going to enter. They're going to try to attack me. While that's happening, you jump off my back and grab the bomb," which she accepts. When they do the plan, basically, Ida was told by Tokoyami to get out of the room because once he unleashes him, yeah, he's not going to be in control. So he's waiting outside. The moment that he leaves and that All Might says go, the windows basically breaks. Ida hears it. He's like, oh no, I've made a mistake. He enters, and yeah, the bomb is already caught. So they basically lost because they didn't think that he would actually come through the window. Well, actually, they didn't think he would be um, bold enough to do that. When in reality, bitch, this Deku isn't afraid of anything. Like, he would be ready to literally go in an explosion to try and get the bomb. So, yeah, they kind of won easily. Sorry for the pause. I was reading. So, he won. Well, they won. Um, All Might, after they came back, basically told them that the problem that they had was just that they didn't think of all the possible way that Deku would actually try to enter, which was kind of dumb to think that he wouldn't fly, basically being one of the main abilities. Like, he has wings and he doesn't even need them to fly, so doubly idiotic of them of thinking that he would not actually do that. So Yaoyorozu then says that it was also a dumb idea from Deku to do that, simply because, yes, they get in there easily, but at the same time it blows the cover, which they could be in great need of, which Deku then says, actually, that was the reason I did it. To attract all attention to me, and to basically make them think that something was problematic. At first, I actually wanted to do the same thing, but tell Ochako to pass through the downside. But then I thought, wait, that would actually be even worse. So I told her to just kind of stay on my back and to basically just jump the moment we're inside. Which does make a bit more sense to do, but at the same time, she still thinks that it was a bad idea. Which Dekuden says, you're not always going to be the most intelligent person. Your plan might have worked, yes, but I have one of the biggest learning capacity that I've ever seen in anyone. I am able to watch someone fight once, and after that I'm able to actually copy them, or hell, not even copy, I can actually just counter automatically that mode of battle. It's easily comparable to, let's say, someone who's in martial arts. If they know the way um, this way of battling works, it's easier for them to actually counter someone else using it. I can actually learn those uh, just by looking at them and then know how to counter it as easily. So basically just looking at their quirk, he basically knew how to actually defeat them. Which Momo kind of got flustered a bit because nobody ever talked to her like that. So she kind of didn't see it coming. Deku then said he's sorry that he's talking, well, that mean, but that it's basically the truth, and that even if normally she wouldn't hear that, he still need she still need to learn about it. Which she does say that she didn't think of it like that, and that she didn't know about that, which she says nobody knows. That's the point. It's one of the only abilities I keep hidden, exactly because it's surprising. All of you knows about it now, but normally people don't, well, see something like that coming from a guy that looks like me. Which All Might basically says that his way of thinking actually is the reason he won, but that there is still some things he would need to learn, mostly when it comes to his way of battling, because sometimes he does make mistake, which he says, yeah, but at least I don't make a mistake big enough to destroy, to break, let's say. Basically, he just look at Ida and says, destroy the chance of someone, or annoy people to death. Which Ida gets a bit angry, and everyone basically knows why already, except All Might that's asking himself what's happening with those two. Then Bakugo basically tells it what's happening, and that Ida's basically harassed him twice during the entrance exam, saying that he was bothering people when Ida was actually the one um, being annoying. Then Ochako basically said that at some point he just looked at me and Ida acted as if he was going to destroy everything that I worked for, which All Might basically looked at Ida just disappointed because, well, why would you do that? Which Ida basically doesn't really respond, and then they just say, so are we doing the next, next battle? Which changed the subject, so he says yes. Basically everything else happens about the same, except for the battle where Tokoyami was, which was won by Bakugo. So basically after a while, it was literally just, okay, yeah, um, we make sure to protect everything, and then we have, we win. So, for most of the battles, Deku was basically able to learn the way that the others in class fight, as well as just looking at their quirk basically made him learn what they are able to do. Which basically nobody really thought about that. That just looking at you basically means he knows what you can do. So they didn't even try to hide something. They were just going all out. Well, for those that were able to do it. And for the first time, he decided to actually try something. And it was basically try to sense the energy in the class. Which he basically sensed, well, that the invisible girl, basically her energy is mostly calm, like it's trying to not be seen, which goes with her quirk. Bakugo, he has an explosive aura basically around him, which he basically think, yeah, that basically goes with him. So he's thinking, okay, so the quirks of people are actually shown in their aura. That's that's impressive. So after a bit of basically everything happening, the battles are over, and then we go to the other days, and we pass until the day of the class president choosing. So first thing that they remark basically is that well, Deku, being pretty intelligent, would actually be a good candidate to be the class representative. Um, at first, nobody really thinks of Ida because they know how he acted. So Deku still tried to to choose him because, well, he knows that he tried to at least make good on what he did. But he sees that people don't really see it as such, so he doesn't try to push it further. And he goes to take the spot. Then, and the attack happens. Everyone acts the same way. And then Deku basically grabs Ida because he saw it first, and then just lifts him up, and acting as if, well, literally just to bring him up. So everyone basically gets told by Ida that it's just the press. People in class basically sees that Deku's still lifting him. Then, when they're back in class, Deku says that Ida would probably be better at this, which everyone decides to actually go with, so that doesn't change. Now we pass to the USJ. In the, well, in the school bus, while they're going, they're asking about quirks, and then they stop at Bakugo and ask him, your quirk is different, well, looks a bit like All Might's quirk. Which he acts as if he doesn't know what she's saying and basically starts making an explosion in his hand, saying, that looks like All Might's quirk. And then she says, not that one, the other one. Which Deku, well, Cell basically says, the one you use in Aizawa's test to basically throw your ball even farther. That's the one she's talking about. Which he's kind of like, oh, yeah, I guess it can, but I don't think All Might can break his bones using his. Which everyone basically looks at him thinking, breaking his bones? What do you mean? Which Bakugo then explains that with his second quirk, if he doesn't control it and goes too far, he can actually break his bone. And it hurts extremely bad. They arrive at USJ, and they go out of the bus, they meet 13, and then they go inside. They talk about the place, and then the portal opens, and when everyone passed through it, Shigaraki and Kurogiri sees Deku, and they heard about one of the experiments that One for All had made that escaped that basically looked like a bug. A giant bug. And both of them thought about that but were like, yeah, no, that's impossible. They were programmed to do evil things, so it's probably just someone with a quirk that looks basically like that. While Izuku sees their aura and basically sees that the Nomu, his aura basically is dull. Like, it's powerful, but there's nothing. As if it was a blank slate with a lot of power. No mind, no nothing. But the others are basically, well, basically have auras that are pretty weak, but all of them are different and evil. Then he looks at Kurogiri and Shigaraki, and their aura are more powerful and have a massive amount of evil in them. Shigaraki's aura seemed to not even be able to be contained in itself, as if it's destroying itself after leaving him, basically pointing to his quirk. While Kurogiri's aura is basically all contained around himself, all in his body of gas and basically darkness, which he sees as Kurogiri is in full control of his mind, while Shigaraki isn't. That's what Deku thinks of it. Um, Aizawa tells everyone to run out of there and 13 to protect everyone. Deku basically places his hand behind him and blows the door up and tells Ida to run back to school. He says, but you're faster, but then Deku turns and says, yeah, but that monster needs to be slain. With Aizawa saying, what? And then he points to the Nomu and says, that thing. That's what they were trying to do to me. With Aizawa remembering the story of All Might, well, that All Might told him about Deku, that he woke up in a lab surrounded by giant black monsters, well, big black monsters, and he says, so you want to kill it? I'm your teacher, I'm supposed to keep you out of danger. Which Deku then says, yeah. Then he takes out his stinger, because basically every day, Nezu, without being able to find anything, at lunchtime, he basically told Deku that he could go out. He has an like 30 or so minute more for him to be able to go back to the forest, eat something. He basically shows his stingers and says, I'm not going to fight it. Which Aizawa is like, so that's how you're going to do it? Well, okay. And then looks back at everyone and tells them to run. He tells Deku good luck, and basically they launch. Shigaraki basically tells the Nomu to kill the kid, well, the green one, because he doesn't know if it's a kid. Which the Nomu basically attacks. While Aizawa is going after the small villains, Deku is attacked by the Nomu, which the Nomu punch him once, and Deku freaking feels it, like he gets thrown away. He looks back at the Nomu's basically coming back at him, and Deku goes to hit him. His punch made the Nomu move just a bit, but Shigaraki still saw that and was like, that's a lot of strength. Then the Nomu goes to punch Deku again, Deku feels it, and then decide that, okay, yeah, no. I'm drinking him, and basically plays the tail in him, and tries to make the Nomu unable to actually catch Deku, and starts basically draining its arm, which Deku feels a lot of strength coming off of that. And he gets more powerful. He drains the arm basically like Cell in Dragon Ball drained Piccolo's arm, but then get pushed off. The Nomu's arm basically starts regenerating, and then Deku looks at him like, I have to do this in one go. And basically does the second thing with his stinger that's basically making it bigger to directly absorb the Nomu inside of him. And just straight up start absorbing it. Shigaraki is freaking afraid of that. Every student is basically looking at that afraid because they saw him use his stinger for the first time. Then they just see the Nomu completely disappearing, entering Deku's body. The Nomu gets absorbed completely, and then Deku fall on the ground and basically start to have spasm. Aizawa always afraid because he doesn't know if Deku's okay, but still fights. And then Deku basically just starts to scream, a bright light, an explosion, and then during that bright light and explosion, his body basically changed into semi-perfect cell. So he passed from that and goes to that, which is taller than perfect cell. So he basically got bigger, like he's about the same size or a bit taller than All Might by this point. Which everyone basically saw that, Shigaraki saw it, and Deku's regeneration finally got to the same point that Cell was in his imperfect form. He still wouldn't be able, well, by this point he has the capacity to regrow from a single cell, as well as the capacity to become stronger by regenerating. So he's already pretty freaking strong now. Thanks to absorbing that, he's actually stronger than All Might at this point. And Shigaraki doesn't know that. Deku doesn't know that. He knows that he adds, basically his body just absorbed a huge amount of strength. So he doesn't know it, but his body's basically like, finally a real meal. Then Izuku basically looks at every villains and he basically moves fast enough to basically just give a punch to one of them and basically makes him go so fast that he pushed down a lot more. He basically on the verge of killing it, but he doesn't. Every other one basically starts running in fear. Shigaraki tells Kurogiri to open the portal behind him. Basically, he tries to disintegrate Deku, basically grabbing the arm. Deku sees his arm basically being destroyed, pushes Shigaraki away, then Shigaraki says we're going. He's going to die anyway now. While the disintegration is working up Deku's arm, All Might arrive. Then Deku basically grabs his arm just thinking, hope it regrows, and just rips it off, because he knows he has a small regen. He does, but he saw the Nomu's arm regenerating, and he hopes his body absorbed that. And yeah, it did, but to a much higher extent than what he thought. Basically, he ripped his arm off, and it regrew instantly, practically. All Might arrived and asked if everything was okay, basically seeing every villain just cowering in fear, and then asked who that was, and he basically says, I am Cell. Which All Might is really surprised by that, like his new form, and he basically asked him what happened, and he just said, I ate, basically showing his stinger, He said I ate one of the other monsters that were next to me in those tubes. So there's one less in the world, without knowing that there's actually a freaking bigger amount of them that he thinks. He will only absorb 3 of them. Um, in the Stain arc, he probably won't eat any of them, but he will probably not get Perfect Cell um, in a while. Like, the 2 others that I want him to eat will be High and Nomus, that I'm going to basically have to wait for the anime to continue to be able to do it. Well, the anime and the manga. I know there were 12 of them only because of one manga I read. But yeah, so the other hero arrived, the villains were stopped. Um, they basically, well, everyone asked Deku how he felt, and he said it was just a bit weird because of the size difference. So, thanks to him having no clothes for his hero costume, nothing ripped apart, and anyway, they would have exploded in the same time. So they basically changed his picture for the school, as well as updated his profile so that the school didn't see him as a villain. And then they get told that they have a week off. Before everyone leaves, everyone, and I really mean everyone in class, except 4 people, being um, Ida, Momo, Shoto, and wait, who's the last one? Okay, yeah, the last one is Tokoyami. Except those one, everyone basically goes to ask him if they could train with him, which he says if you want, but I don't think you want to come to my house, which everyone says that you told Ochako you live in a forest, right? It would be the best place to be. So he decided to accept and tell them that still there's this thing they won't like seeing. So the next day they basically all had asked their parents. They basically told that one of the other students lives in the forest and that he's basically strong enough to be a hero by this point, so no matter. Um, there's no real problem. So all of them basically accepted. Some of them had to lie to basically be told by the parent they can go. But everyone basically arrived at some point. While they started arriving, well, entering the forest to go to his house, at some point they saw the farm and basically they said that it's cute that he has those and that and then the one that can talk to animals basically asked how much time he does well he how much time he takes out of each day to basically take care of them, which he says that those are actually his source of food, but that he cares about them very much until that needs to happen. Which they basically ask him if he's finally going to eat at school now, since his mouth actually has teeth. Which he says that no, not really. The problem is still there for this reason, which they ask, yeah, you told us that there was a problem with normal food, but what is it? Which she says that it's not pretty and that he does actually hate doing that, but he then shows his fingers and says that the only way he actually feels fed is to put that in something living and actually eat it completely. He totally hates doing that, but it's the only way that he actually feels fed. Which all of them think it's pretty bad. But they get that even he doesn't want to do that, but it's the only way, and that's, well, he doesn't even know he doesn't need to do that, and he would still live for practically forever. And they get that he needs to eat, and if he doesn't do it like that, basically he might die, which once again they don't know that he would not. So basically in the end they all try to forget that part, and they ask him how to basically train, since they know he saw all of their powers. Which he decides to say that for the next week, if they want to train, they would mostly need to train their physical strength at first. They ask him why, and then he says, because even if you use your quirk, you still need power physically. Someone who has super strength, his strength won't grow if he doesn't train. It's still superhuman, but he can still increase it. So even if you have quirks to basically fight, what happens is if you're fighting someone that isn't affected by it, or in a place where your quirk is actually useless? Which all make them basically realize that, oh yeah, he's right. We need to train our bodies. Mineta basically asks where they're going to wash themselves, which he basically says that normally he just goes in the lake to wash, but that they won't stay here for that long, which each of them basically says that they asked if they could stay the entire week, which he basically just says, oh, well, it's going to be in the lake. So he then thinks about it a bit. They ask him if he has any money to go buy soap or stuff like that, which he basically says that yeah, he has soap. Then he decides to say, okay, you start training on physical training. Which all of them ask if he has weights, which he says, oh no, not like that. You're going to work in a different way. He basically says that to train, he was looking at martial arts people, then using them on trees and stuff like that, and then basically goes to a certain place where they see rock that are smashed, trees that are or blown up or literally cut weirdly, and then he says, you're going to train like me. Your powers won't be as strong, but you should still be able to do those after a while. What I want you to do is train martial arts later. For now, you only go in strength. So what you're going to do is start trying to cut trees. Basically, he says that, he basically just says that he's going to go grab stuff to actually do it. Do what he wants them to do. And basically leaves for about 2 hours or so, which, yes, is pretty long, but he basically went and gathered up a massive amount of things. Basically, he came back with axes, shovels, other things like that, pickaxe, and told them that what he wanted them to do is build a house out of wood and rock. They need to prepare the terrain, they need to cut the trees, they need to break the rocks. They can or use their own bodies, arms, legs, whatever, or use the tools. Which all of them basically tell him, okay, but where are the nails and stuff like that? And he tells them that no nails. what you do is make holes, is cut the tree, make the planks, and what you and use his quirk, basically pointing to Shiro, to wrap them together and make sure they hold. In the end, I want you to have a perfect house for all of you to live in as one at once. During that time, I'm going to go start to build something else. Then he looks at Mineta and says, "If I hear that you've been creeping on the girls, I throw you out of the forest myself from here." Which they're basically like 2 or 3 miles in the forest, so hearing that basically makes Mineta, well, afraid. So he tells them to work, and that for the two first nights, while the house will probably not be done, they'll be able to sleep in his house. But after those 2 days and nights, if they're not finished, they sleep in the forest. All of them basically get that, okay, yeah, so we're doing it fast. So they basically separate people into groups, those that basically break stones to make specific size, to basically make like bricks to put on the ground. A group that are placed to cut trees, a group that are made to make planks out of those trees using the tools to do it, and then some that are digging to basically make the place correct. And they told them that each hours they relax for 15 minutes and then switch job. So every hour they stop for 15 minutes, then go back to work on another job to basically train the different muscles over time. So while they were doing that, basically Deku went and built, well, he literally dig dig out 2 deep holes, basically, to make water go in, then built wall around them, and to basically make that correct to bait, he basically just kind of, well, left them there like that. So he just built some bench and stuff like that, and so that was basically enough. He put soap on each place, and when he came back, they had a lot of planks. They had a pretty good part of it done, but the house wasn't started to build yet because no one was assigned to do that yet. So at the end of the day, they basically said that they were all hungry, they haven't eaten anything since they arrived, and he told them that if they want to eat, they have to cook themselves, like he's been doing all this time. He says that in this forest there are trees, well, there's plants, veggies, fruits, and that there are animals or in the farm or in the wild. For 2 days and the next day, they can use the animals in the farm to cook, which all of them get that it means killing them, which they are a bit of not feeling well about that, but they get that, okay, yeah, we still have to do it. They asked him what he was doing, and he said that he was building places for them to wash. So they're going to eat. They had to cook, find what they want themselves, and then they can go wash. So they basically choose from the farm, which has a bit more animals by this point. It has rabbits, ducks. There's actually a place with about 4 or 5 different cages for bears that are stuck in it. which those are just for emergencies if he needs a lot, basically. Which he basically says that those are not to eat. Well, not for them to eat. Which they basically were like, yeah, no shit. So, basically at first they only took small things, since there are, well, a lot of animals. They went looking for plants and stuff, which they found multiple plants that were poisonous that they didn't know, brought them. Deku was basically looking at everything they were bringing and saying, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad. Sometimes they had good things. So after a while, basically, they had some apples and stuff like that. Um, they found some carrots. They found multiple plants that they could use to season what they were going to eat. But they didn't find any other things, really, that were eatable. Simply because they weren't really looking for those. They were basically looking for stuff that was visibly eatable. So they basically had to cook themselves as well, which um, they are able to do already for most of them. So the only problem was killing the animal, which they still had to do. So they kind of had, well, finished by doing it. Then they cooked, ate, then he showed them the bath, which were pretty separated. So one side the girls, one side the boys, which they asked him if he was going to wash with them, which he says, no, I'm going to go wash in the lake itself. So yeah. After all that, they slept in Deku's house, separated, and basically the only thing that I want to say about this before leaving, because I'm going to end it here, is that Tsuyu didn't really try to sleep that much without being close to Deku. I'm going to end it at that. Hope you liked it. Leave a like if you did. Not to. Out.